Thank you again for doing this.
Hello.
Hello. I
Thank
usually
you.
just have people kind of introduce themselves and go from there.
Okay, great. Well, I'm Kate Phillips and fellow filmmaker in Houston, fellow faculty member at HCC in the filmmaking program. And I'm coming to you right now from LA, my friend's place right now that I'm staying. What should I say about myself? Anything?
I don't
I
know.
just
It's
did
always
a,
interesting to see how people describe themselves, I think is
yeah,
often my starting point is kind of, yeah.
you test us right up front. Interview
Right.
technique. Well, yes, I'm looking at the hills, which is very nice, and seeing some green today, and it's kind of cloudy, which is giving me a really good
Yeah, you've got great light.
lighting. Yeah, it's
I've got
really
like
good.
horrible fluorescent.
I know, I'm sorry. I know those lights so well,
Yeah.
but yes,
Yeah.
so
Well,
miss
let's
you
talk
guys.
about
Yeah.
LA. Like, I mean, we both lived in LA, like, both have
hmm
experience in the industry. So, like, I'm curious about, especially kind of basing yourself more recently in Houston, like, what was that experience kind of coming from LA? I mean, obviously there was the pandemic, but
hmm
like, post that with
Yeah.
you pushing for your own work and then kind of like where are you now in terms of like because you are kind of transitioning from teaching and kind of putting yourself more back out there. So I'm just curious that the LA thing
hmm
is always like this eternal question, I think, in every
hmm
filmmaker's mind is like, how much do you need to
mm
be in LA or have that experience or not? Or I don't know. And so I'm curious what your thoughts
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, it's a good question because I'm thinking like being here right now, just like how many iterations of myself I've been in LA, how long I've been in LA, how long I've known LA. And so it's an interesting perspective because I think I feel very connected to things here, but not the industry right now, not in the way that I used to be. And I like that. Um, you know, there's something about LA that it has its own like energy that can be very supportive and it can be very destructive. It can be very difficult and very crushing but it also can uplift things and it's sort of random, you know. I sort of think about it like like a kind of Monaco, like one of the biggest crap tables in, the world is LA in the film industry. Like I think, yes, sometimes great projects get made and it's an amazing story. And sometimes really terrible projects get made all the time. And sometimes really great projects don't get made. And sometimes really terrible projects don't get made. And, like there's sort of a randomness to it. Like if that like basically like I always think I came out here when I was so young, when I was like 20, when I was 20 and this UT, I was at UT in Austin and they had a semester in LA program. And I came out here and I had an internship at Scott Free. And that was great because the creative executive there went to UT. So I got that internship, which was an amazing, and that like me and a couple other people from my internship class had cool internships like that, but not everybody. But that was my experiences. It was very easy to get swept up in it. Like suddenly I was around celebrities every day and, like going to parties and premieres and it felt like, wow, oh my God, the dream is here. Like it just is right before your feet. And this is something I talked about in my one woman show. So that's why I feel like more, you know, like it's on the mind, but it's also something I've been reflecting on a lot that just like, I mean, it's a dark story, but it's true. Like one of my very first bosses was a very famous director who like took his own life, when I was 21 when that happened. And so it was this very like, oh my gosh, LA is just everything's here and this dream can come true. And I think that um, people want dreams to come true for lots of different reasons. And sometimes it's because you're a child that's been hurt. And that's what happens to a lot of people out here too. And there it's like very exciting to have a dream come true, but you have to like, this is not a safe place also, for children. period. And like that's, the other side of it. So not that that has anything to do with the director, but like that was a lot to be exposed to when I was a young person, and like um it was just the other side of things. So this is a very long-winded response to your question. But it's just, it's like I love Houston. Chance like coming back to Houston grounded me so much. And that's what we were just talking about kind of like offline before we started was like I got so swept up in things here and it's very easy to do, but my feet weren't on the ground and it was very difficult to create anything of substance or, you know, um, do anything other than just chase clout and like, the next thing, the next meeting, the next job, the next this, the next that, which is what a lot of people I know out here do. And now that I started when I was very young here and I made friends who many of whom have just stayed out here and have been working. And so I've seen, that like sort of steady work in any field out here in production and development, except for being a filmmaker, will kind of naturally get you to a certain position. But like the, you know, making of movies is still like very, very like random and TV shows and what gets made and what doesn't. And like it's very you know, like the factors that influence it are things that don't really matter to artists that much, like money and, politics and shareholder things. And so um I think that became very upsetting to me. And I just like couldn't figure out what I was doing this for, when I was living out here before and coming back to Houston, um, in the pandemic, I was like, oh, I'm going to go back to LA in a year. Like, there's no way that I'll stay in Houston. But then it really just, I found myself having like real conversations with people that weren't just all about the film industry and promoting myself and like, putting together another bio, another synopsis, another pitch, another this, it felt like, I was all the stuff and the politics that people had been talking about in LA. I was actually living in Houston, just in my daily interactions with people I taught with and worked with at HCC. Talk about like understanding like, neurodivergence and, class differences and the difficulties of being a working parent, trying to get an education, or a former felon or a former, veteran. Like, that's just one semester at HCC, right? That's one class. It's like, and so, and just hearing people write their stories, it just like it reminded me so much of like why I started doing this and what I'm doing it for. And what sustains me is not any of the stuff in LA. What sustains me is connecting to people, is being able to tell a story and have it move somebody or make them laugh or make them go, oh, I want to tell my own story now. And that I think in today's world that we're living in is the reason that I believe being a filmmaker is a good and like right thing to do, because what we need in a difficult, like a terrifying world is to remember that we're connected to each other through our similarities, which are really well expressed through story, I think. And I don't think it needs to be on HBO or like, Netflix in order for it to have that power. And in fact, that's what's so interesting about being here too. I always note this is like, how it is here, like all the signs all along the roads are all the billboards, all the little like flags that hang off of the street lamps and stuff are advertisements for movies and TV shows that are all the big award winners and stuff. And it's always so funny because I started to notice this when I started working at HCC was like, I would come back to LA every summer and I would notice that none of the shows that anybody in Houston were watching and talking about were were on any of these billboards or signs out here, and vice versa. None of these. I sometimes I look at it and I'm like, you guys think someone's watching the what I mean, some of them, yes, obviously, like Game of Thrones or whatever, that are phenomenon. But like there are shows where you're just like, no one's watching that, and in LA, but you have like a very distorted sense of what the rest of the country's thinking and what they're watching, even. And like that just schools me. It always reminds me, like, no, and that's why I've been so interested in YouTube lately. And I think coming back to Houston just like reminded me, like, I'm making this to connect to people. That has to be my kind of guiding force. And if and when money comes to support that, great. But like, it's not like making an indie feature is a guaranteed way to make money. So, it's not like there's some kind of path I'm avoiding, but right now I'm just feeling like there has to be a way. Like I've been studying creators who, use Patreon, use YouTube, use like I know this kind of might feel like even dated talk to some young people on the internet, but like just realizing that we can marshal, our own numbers. And that is what influences the needle here in LA is that, again, they don't really know what people are watching, and they're not really connected to people. And so we have that ability, I think, as filmmakers to remain connected to our community. And that's why I love what you do so much with like your films and the fundraising events that you've done, like the one you're doing this weekend and the one that you did in the past for acid test. Like I always, when I first moved to Houston and I like looked you up because I got the job, I was like so excited to meet you and work with you because I just thought, oh, this is exactly it. Like this is what I'm not seeing in LA is a filmmaker who is making films like not just about their community, but supported by their community, with their community, for the community, ultimately, like every step of the way, fundraising from it, crewing from it, being made with it, and then premiering it to that community, initially is such a like, I think, important way to like move as filmmakers right now because it shows that we have a community behind us and that we are not just like exploiting, but that we want to like uplift um and like not like you I always feel unsure about whether or not to recommend people to come out to LA because it really is there's a lot of artifice and there's a lot of like things that are done for reasons that I don't agree with at all. But there's also this like weird dream factor of LA, right? It just like, and when I'm out here, I'm like, oh my God, there's like the fig trees and the, little fruit trees and the flowers and, you know, anything is possible is the feeling in LA. And sometimes it can be, but then it can be devastating too. So I think that's why we have to be here really fundamentally. I think you have to be grounded in something. You either have to have like an enormous amount of money, you have to have a community back home or a community here that you feel really supported by. You can't be rootless in LA because it will, fuck you up.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. It's
Mm.
it is I don't know, it is such an interesting place. I think to a certain extent it is useful to have that experience, but I also had a similar experience in the sense of, you know, most of my time in LA was kind of trying to, like you said, chase clout, trying to kind of get that next meeting, that next networking opportunity, that next kind of thing to like assemble. It was this very kind of abstract, like I'm assembling all the things that will then
Yeah.
eventually somehow launch me as a writer, director, or whatever. And then it's kind of like, or I could just go do it. like,
Yeah. Right.
and so it's like, and it's so much easier to
Right.
just do it outside of
Hmm.
LA, even though they have all of these resources in LA and these wonderful like nonprofits or schools or things like
Hmm.
that. But then they also just kind of become their own gatekeepers
Yeah,
as well.
totally.
So then it's, I don't
Right.
know. It's,
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't made anything for 7 years when I moved back to Houston, which is crazy. Like, well, no, that can't be true. Is that true? 2020, well, at least like 3 or 4 years. But I mean, I really hadn't made anything since film school because I had been in that grind of like ooh, meetings, contests, festivals, next thing is gonna be it. They're gonna sign me. But you're right. Like I was like, I'm not making a movie right now. I'm just taking a lot of meetings.
Right.
And then, maybe this will get to this or this will get to that, or like I'll direct this Facebook horror series that I like hate the idea of, but they'll pay me money and then maybe I can get a meeting and maybe,
Yeah.
ugh. But
Yeah, and the
yeah,
artifice
yeah.
of like, people are constantly pitching things, and I remember distinctly hearing somebody else, I think it was a fellow film student or and somebody
Mhm.
who, was asked, "Oh, well, what are you working on?" And they start talking about something they're working on. I was like, "You are not working on that. Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?"
you're
It's
not
like they
working
just
on
like
that.
pulled out this pitch, which I mean is great. Think on your
Yeah,
feet, be ready to pitch. All that
yeah.
stuff is necessary, but it's amazing how much that
Well,
artifice,
right.
is how
Yeah.
you kind of convince people to
Well,
connect,
yeah.
but then you're not actually creating anything. So,
It goes to show like hot wind can take you very far in LA, actually, like all the way to production. Like, if you have enough of it, there's like why Anna Delvey's like, there's so many
right.
movies that, like,
Yeah.
when I worked for an entertainment lawyer, she was like this, very interesting Russian woman. And she had some like Russian, oligarch clients that were just like funneling money through movies. Like, I just would be like, this is crazy. They don't even have a script. They're just like, we put an action person in a movie and who wants to write it? Like the idea that, it really like influenced my idea that like movies were like a hard thing to get made. I mean, of course they are, but I just was like, no, I'm not gonna believe that. I'm gonna look at this. Like these people are making movies for like no reason. But anyway, that hot air can get you like very far, which is why like a lot of people crash and burn because they think they've made something when they haven't. They get to like a high platform and then they don't really have anything, which is why I think it's actually very good luck to not have your hot air succeed. I think it's good luck to be brought back to earth because you have to actually build something. And so then, when you like, yeah, you can have something to back up your hot air. But like it is just hot air out here in a lot of ways. And you're right, like I that used like I don't do it anymore like in people's bios, they're like developing 4 feature projects. Like, aren't we all, like what does that mean? But then I moved back to Houston and I made 5 shorts between 2021 and 2022, and none of them won the Student Academy Award like I was trying to do at Columbia, but all of them made me a better filmmaker, connected me to crew that I got to know and like trust on a deeper level, taught me more about how to make movies in Houston, like pushed my own boundaries, made me braver, made me better at managing time. I practiced acting and directing at the same time so that, when I do have an opportunity and money, like I will be so prepared. And I also have loved making those movies. They were wonderful experiences and we made them and people saw them and we've screened them at festivals and people came up to us and talked to us afterwards and you know shared their stories. And that has just totally reframed like the way I think about doing this and coming back here is like that's the success. That's it, bar none, like yes, money is nice, but you literally can't count on money at any stage in this game whatsoever. And to the point until the point when it gets stupid. And at that point, I do think there's like a disconnect from the thing that we're making, like you're never going to have your hands on it as much as when you're doing indie film. You're never going to, when you have a $10 million budget, no one's letting you schedule, but I love to schedule. I love to think about, how would I, you know, like how do I really want to work that performance like today, like how do I want to get that actor to just the right point by like 3 p.m. after lunch so that they're going to be able to, do that performance, I think, with an easy morning. I love to like handcraft a film, I love to make something and feel really connected to it. I loved with the one woman show working with Daly, who did art on Hair Barley and is like an art director here in Houston and Beaumont, because she just made like I love physical props. I love the like making of something. I never want to get like disconnected from that and making movies on a, you know, light stage or a green screen. That's just me.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. The scheduling thing is fascinating because I definitely do that too when I
Mm-hmm.
like scheduling, and I often am thinking about, unlike some people, and I understand the reason behind like get some of your hardest stuff done kind of right up front, but I usually want my first day to be
Mm-hmm.
something that is, deals with like the meat or the kind of everyday aspect of the film, but also just gives us room to like start gelling as a crew and to like
Mm-hmm.
warm the actors up. Like I don't want to come in first day and have like a sex scene or a fight scene or
Mm-hmm.
like I want to have a couple of days where it's like, okay, here we are getting to trust each other, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because that's obviously more of a producing side of things, but it definitely is
Mm-hmm.
part of my directing,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm like producer, writer, director, so I had
Yeah.
never really, I mean, I thought about it consciously, but I had never verbalized it the way that you just did. So it was interesting to
Hmm.
kind of hear that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is fascinating to think about how it all, because directing is shaping the production too, as
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's not just getting the material, it's how you get the material.
Mm-hmm.
um so I'm curious,
Mm-hmm.
like, do you feel like,
Yeah.
what would you say is your superpower as a director?
Superpower. Oh, good question. Well, I think that's it. You just can kind of like, yeah, connecting to that is like, this is such a, work of working with people and um everyone has their own way of doing it and doing it well, but like there is something, well, when I was going to say this is more general, but then I'll say about me, like there's something about being a woman director or being feminine, and having and being in touch with the feminine as a director, to having that care and like time for a set and a crew. And not that men can't do this, I've seen them do it, but like too few men and women, have that kind of care. Like I've seen other sets, it's just when you said that, I was like, oh, it's so refreshing to hear that. And of course it makes sense because I know you and because you're a caring, person in the way you teach and lead, and that your values like are a part of the way you do that. And that's how I am too. I think it's important. And like you said, it's not just what you get, it's how you get it. I think that lives in what you capture. I think there is something like I've always believed that like I think that what I observed actually watching, Tony, the director that I worked for who died, was when he died, the amount of people, I mean, it was sad in one respect because it wasn't like family, but in another respect, it was amazing how many former crew came to every funeral, every memorial service, and how many people loved him, people who worked on a commercial with him like 20 years ago. And I learned working from him, like I saw him on a commercial like very early on shooting in LA, and he shook every person's hand on set and looked them in the eye, and he knew their name. And that simple act made them do anything for him, like work, way overtime in the sand and the dust, like, and like, just like, and he'd always say, kill, kill. He'd have his cigar and he'd write it on notes to people too, kill, kill. Like that would be his thing. Just be like, ah, kill. And, people would kill. They would just bring their absolute pen. And that's what I love about filmmaking ultimately. And what I think I love all kinds of artistic expression. I love the art of just writing, in my own way. Like, I think it's so important to the soul for everybody to have their own individual expression. But like what filmmaking, what its like power is to me in so many ways is its ability to connect people, not just in the story, but in the way that we make it. And I love that films are the product of like the great skilled work of many artisans coming together, like that was the first movie that I fell in love with in middle school as a young person was Lord of the Rings and watching the special features DVDs. And it was like, it was never just Peter Jackson who made Lord of the Rings. And he would never, ever want anybody to think that. In fact, he said it, I remember in the commentary, because I had it memorized, that I'll never say a film by Peter Jackson on my films because I don't stand by that. It's a film is a work of all these people. And you could see in that, like all these random ass people in New Zealand who had barely worked on a big budget movie, suddenly Oscar winning work. They went from like zero to they built a huge soundstage, like industry created, like, money, like all that abundance, I think flows towards authentic, community expression. I think, it like should naturally follow hope, we'll see. But I think it can when when like a group works that well together. And I think that that is, I guess, coming back to like my superpower, or I don't know if that's like a power or just like a high value of mine, but I hope it is a power of mine, is like the ability to be connected to people and stay in connection with them throughout production. And I think that's I think that is what I'm like trying to teach in the workshops that I started teaching in March and will try to continue to teach, in the fall, because I think that directing is so much the art of, in many ways, and keeping an actor in the present moment, like holding them in the present, even in difficult, uncomfortable emotions, the ability to just like be there and hold on to it and not be damaged long term, to be cared for. And the same is really true of crew as well. Like we may not be in the same emotional struggle, but like you're out there in the dirt getting bit by mosquitoes, you're losing sleep, you're on your period, like whatever it may be, your spine's hurting, holding this thing up. Like people are putting their bodies and their lives on the line. And in indie filmmaking, they're not making money. So like, it's so much what I again love about indie filmmaking is it's so much for the love. And I think that that love can be marshaled actually very well to create something beautiful, if you can like stay in connection with the people that you're making it with. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Was there something that you feel that you were working on or trying to get better at, or that you would like to get better at as a director that you feel like, is maybe a weaker side of things or
Weakness. Good question. Many things throughout, like I think being vulnerable and like truthful has been something that I've been working on for a long time, which is a big motivation for the show that I did. Um, I think being able to be present myself was the work that I had to do first within myself to get to like wanting to cultivate it in others. Because, yeah, I just remember like it was in 2022, I was on a short that I was directing that actually had a good producer for once in my entire life. Like I wasn't having to think about like moving parked cars and like who's ordering lunch and uh the sound person lost the cards, like, I just was at monitor watching and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing my job better than I ever have before. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is actually important, to cultivate this presence in myself. It's not like a diva-ish thing to do. And it doesn't mean I need to be rude to people, but it does mean like the movie is better and all the work that we're doing here is more like valid and justified if I can bring my best game too. Like that's the point is like I want to care for people to motivate them to bring their best work and therefore like I also have to be doing it. Um so I think I have that tendency to like people please, or like especially when I first started to like show that I was doing the most work, like, oh, I'm picking up C-stands, don't worry, I still have that, like this desire to like show the crew I'm working. And, I think it's good to like put in your elbow grease a little bit. But like there is that just like being really like holding the value of your own, you know, vision while you're there. I think I want to continue to do that. And that's what I think like acting and directing at the same time is interesting for, because there's not a lot of time to question what you're doing. So you're just kind of like, I hope I'm executing this thing somebody else wrote. I don't know who. It's like, I don't know. I, that's a good question because I haven't made something in a minute. So I'm like, the challenge always kind of presents itself like when you're making something, I think. I feel like every film, there's like, oh, this is why I'm making this, I'll definitely learn this from that. And so much of my recent stuff has been about vulnerability and being okay with imperfection. I think I really have got to continue to work with that. And there's still so much of me that's my Columbia MFA educated, self that like I just have to have, good shot structure in a scene, like have to. And sometimes, you just have to shoot the scene. Like, there's something about I don't know. I don't know. I go back and forth because at the same time, like rigor and, craft are a way of showing like care and devotion to what you're doing too. So I think that that's important, but I guess I'm working on that line is like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you kind of, I think, directly or kind of perfectly put in a way, like the roller coaster
Mhm.
kind of mentality where it's like, on one hand, you're kind of like, we'll just shoot it and whatever it is, and it'll be beautiful in its rawness and its imperfection, all this stuff. And then there's that other side that's kind of like, but is it going to be seen as amateurish? Or it's like those
Mhm.
external
Yeah.
voices that are kind of like,
Hmm.
it has to live up to these standards, or it has to live, and they might be my standards, but it's kind of like, and I just feel like that roller coaster exists all the time in every
Hmm.
phase where you're just kind of
Hmm.
like, oh, this is great when you're writing, and then you go back to it later and you're like, oh, like, why did I write this? This is terrible,
Yeah.
and then
Who
you come
wrote
up with
this?
something new and you're like, this
Yeah.
is amazing, and then you're like, oh
Yeah.
god, this is,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it is a very
Yeah.
strange kind of mental struggle where it's like you want, it is a manufactured art, but there is very much this in the moment kind of presence, and then, and it's almost like a fever dream where you kind of like,
Yeah.
especially when you're on set, you're just kind of like, well, we just have
Yeah.
to get stuff. And it
Yeah.
kind of, you just can't control it, I mean, you control
Yeah.
what you can, but it's like
No, if you try to control
yeah,
it or grip too
yeah,
tightly, you'll ruin the whole thing. You have to,
yeah,
like, you'll bring the whole movie down. I learned that like very early on. Like, oh, the whole thing's coming down with me right now. Like, we have got it. We're shooting. We're making this movie with what we have. The sun's going down. You're only going to get this day. So
right.
shoot something. But yeah, no, I mean, like you're right. Like that, you're right. It's not going away, and nor should it. Like that tension is sort of what it's sort of part of the beauty and the fun of filmmaking and what makes it so interesting. And what I like about it, like I was just talking with my boyfriend recently, who's a writer, and we were talking about movies and what did I say? Like, fuck, I just got distracted thinking about my boyfriend. That's funny. What was I saying about
We
movies?
were talking about the roller coaster, the tension.
Like why we need conflict. Uh, fuck, I forget. Sorry, I shouldn't. Okay, so let's go back to it. The tension, maybe I'll remember, but the tension is so important because it keeps things like vital and alive. Yeah, I think that's what we
Hmm.
were talking about. It's like keeping things like renewing and constant. Like a scene needs conflict. It must have some charge or tension in it that is what makes it so healing. It can make it very provocative. It can make it, very funny or whatever. And so that has to, like, it exists within us, like that tension of like, is it ever, of like it wanting to be so vital and present. We are filming life, we're
Hmm.
filming, even animation is capturing some kind of, like present moment production of a human mind, you know, like it's we're capturing life, but then you're like you said, there's this artifice to it. And then how much artifice is needed or is wanted or is, you know, and every film has a different answer to that question. And there isn't really a right one. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's something I had lunch with Sarah Gaston recently, and she
Hmm.
was asking me, what I thought about your one woman show, and I know, she was talking about how she had helped you out with it, and that there was this,
Hmm.
I was saying that, I had cried, and, it was just very stirring, and that she had said, and hopefully this doesn't cause any tension, but she had said something like that your initial instincts was to kind of play for the drama, like and
Hmm.
it's interesting too, because I'm not a director actor. I mean, I've
Hmm.
had horrible failed acting moments, but and have had to be trained in it and all that stuff as a director, but I've never, other than as a dancer, I've never been a performer really,
Mm.
and so as a kind of performer director, I thought that was kind of an interesting transition. I'm just curious about kind of reflecting on that yourself, where, her advice was to kind of like be, play it a little bit more straight, and let the audience be the emotion of it as opposed to playing into it.
Hmm.
I don't know if that makes,
Hmm.
if that is kind of how you
Yeah.
remembered it or whatever. But I thought the
Yeah.
deadpan delivery of some of these shocking or,
Uh-huh.
things,
Yeah.
personal things, that was really evocative. And I think that's one of the, for me personally, why I love a lot of like tragicomedy or like things that are
Hmm.
satire but are really about horrible things, but it's funny. It's like
Hmm.
that's I do think one, humor is a trauma response anyways, but
Hmm.
it's, to me it's so fascinating, the truth in, and talk about tension, like this fact that you've got something that is kind of light or funny but is speaking to something very painful and dark.
Yeah.
And again, as a writer director, I tend to, uh, going from the writing to directing phase, I tend to go deep into the melodrama as a writer and then pull it
Hmm.
back as a director, because I
Mm.
know it's not
Yeah.
gonna play well, on screen. And so I'm
Yeah.
just curious, as an actor, having Sarah said that, I was just curious what your process was,
Yeah.
kind of both directing and then embodying that in your work,
Mm.
in the performance.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's such a good, you know, like response and question because it's like what we're, you know, I was just thinking that like before was like that's what is so amazing about comedy and what I want to like continue to, that's really what I want to continue to get better at and learn how to do more is like be looser and freer with the comedy. And I felt like I'm just not as comfortable as a comedian in that show. Like there were so many opportunities where I would have liked to have like you know, done even more comedy and like outright humor. And it's like a line I'm still learning, but I think you're like so right. It becomes this medicine that allows you to, you know, take in really difficult truths. And it's true, like there is something in it's like it's not any less artificial, right, to like perform the drama of something horrible either. So there's something like weirdly like truthful about a certain type of performance, you know, about like, you know, even though it's not at all. So that's what's interesting is I think, yeah, that's such a question that like performers and storytellers, I think we often all struggle with is like the line between truth and reality. And that's why people can get very like lost in this like stuff too because you know that's just a question like am I performing right now or am I being truthful but I've kind of learned is like I'm a performer so performance is truth for me like there's nothing that I find contradictory about that and um so it's just about like playing then really and like what kind of performance generates you know the kind of emotional you know connection or response that I'm hoping for. And that's why I wanted to try live performance, was the ability to experiment and try things on different audiences. And I'm still like working up the nerve to do it, but like that's where like doing stand up or like shorter sets or like like anything is good because it's so interesting to be able to get that real time feedback from an audience in terms of like and you know you kind of have to have the balls to like let some things bomb. But after doing it, it like wasn't, you know, like the second night of that show, there were certain jokes that the first night got like a huge response, and I got nothing on the second night. And I was like, oh, wow, that feels horrible. But then you just get over it and you keep going. And it's like, feels great actually afterwards to think, you know, I survived that. No one's ostracized me from the community. You know, they just didn't laugh. Everyone survived. Like, and it becomes, yeah, like about this dialogue with the audience, which I think is very authentic and, you know, that I want to make myself very like present for. And, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's so true what you're saying. It's just that like I want to continue to learn how to do that more of like as any kind of storyteller is to play with that tension, especially between like the darkness and the light. Oh, that's what I was going to say. My friend, I was talking to a friend who's a filmmaker about this like a couple of days ago, and she mentioned a book which I want to get called "I'm Glad My Mom Died."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like
the
that.
Nickelodeon actress or yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like this kind of, yeah, Jeanette McCurdy, like, you know, dark and horrible truth, you know, married with like outright kind of outlandish comedy and like like, I haven't read it, but she said she has like a very deadpan delivery in that. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to read it to like, you know, continue to like learn more about that like kind of comedy. Because I think there's something, yeah, amazing about it that makes me think of like Billy Wilder, who is just, you know, one of my all-time favorite writer directors. I was just thinking about it too, because Mahesh and I did a interview or talk about The Apartment on my YouTube channel
Mm-hmm.
like a couple, you know, last year or whatever. And just I keep thinking back to like how, you know, Billy Wilder really taught me and was such a amazing filmmaker in the way that he could marry like such dark moments with such ridiculous like slapstick humor. And that's ballsy. And it also is like, again, going back to that tension, like be able to, like it creates this amazing charge that feels very truthful. And I think that's what we're like trying to, you know, create in performance a bit, right? It's like to create that, you know, that charge, uh, even if you get around to it um, in a way through performance, you know, even if you get like, this is making me think too, if I just read this great book, Randy gave it to me. She gave it to me when I left town. And I read it like when I was sick, and it's called All's Well by Mona Awad. Do you
Mm.
know her? She wrote Bunny. I guess that's a
Yeah.
well-known book. All's Well, you would love it. It's about this like drama teacher, like college teacher at a like dying, you know, English department in the East Coast, and
Mm.
she's like putting on this Shakespeare production of All's Well That Ends Well. And it's again, it's so it just really touched me because I just really sympathized with the, you know, struggles of being a college professor in a dying department. Not that we're a dying department, but you know,
Fingers crossed.
it's always, yeah, it's always the threat. And just like the, you know, just the beautiful, you know, all of this stuff, the like beautiful tension of of living as an artist, of like, you know, having that hope and that intense delusion, and then like having reality and being like, okay, this is beautiful too. Wow. Um, you know, yeah. I think it's, yeah, we have to like hold that charge, even though it's uncomfortable. That tension. Yeah. Those questions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Has there been anything kind of as a cautionary tale or something that you kind of maybe it's your experience at Scott Free or but other things where it's like where you yourself kind of carry on kind of like this line where you're like this is not going to happen on my set or like I am going to be the
Mm.
the champion of whatever, the holder of this thing, like
Hmm.
anything that you feel strongly about, in terms of, again, kind of like from that directing lens or filmmaking lens.
Hmm. Do you have any like thing of yours? I'm just curious.
Well, I think for me, I mean, one of the things that I had always felt very strongly about from the beginning was things like, how to be respectful as a director during sex scenes, and like pretty much
Mm,
many of the movies that I've done, like they have something in there.
hmm
And even just at the beginning, even as a film student, it was just something that I was like very conscious of, like
hmm
being making sure that people were comfortable, and making sure that it was done in a respectful way, and making sure that um you know the reasoning behind this moment, was was thought through and explained, and it wasn't just exploitive.
hmm hmm
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's necessarily a good example, but or things like trying to be very conscious of, like, a 12-hour day or under, and like making sure that that 12-hour
hmm
includes rap, and again, that's more of a
Mm,
producing standpoint, but it's like
yeah.
I know that as a director, the work isn't going to be good if we're all dead on our feet, or
hmm
putting
hmm
ourselves in jeopardy driving home, or, things like that. So it's
Yeah.
like those are the types of things that, again, as an indie filmmaker, I have the ability to control those things as much as possible. And
hmm
am, and there have been
Yeah.
times where I've pushed that, and I've gotten feedback from the crew that's like, we can't keep doing this, and I was just kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, it's like I'm aware, like, I let me figure out how to fix this, and that was
hmm
such a great learning
Hmm.
experience, to,
Yeah.
because you don't want to necessarily compromise your artistic, but then on,
hmm
your goals or whatever, but on the other hand, it's like you're not going to get anything if,
Anything. Yeah. You
if
just
if
you
you
have what you
just,
have.
right, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
totally.
don't know, those are just
Yeah,
the
no,
things that I
those
thought
are
about.
good for sure. Those are good. And like I for sure like my experiences as a film student taught me some of those for sure. Like as you were saying that I thought back, I flashed back to this legendary film shoot and it wasn't mine, it was my friend. She produced it and then her friend directed it. And I somehow got roped into like I don't know, I was doing everything on the set, trying to help them. And it was called La Gringa. It was like it was ridiculous comedy, but they went way over every single day and like all night. I just remember like that delirium of sleep and being like, I should have gone home hours ago, but somehow I'm still here. Like, why are any of us here? And I just remember being like, never, I will never do this to people. It's so bad. It's so shitty. And then like ordering pizza, at like 4 in the morning. But one thing I think that like that's a good one for sure is like don't don't work people past their limit. They just aren't gonna, again, this is about like the organism is making this movie, not just,
Yeah.
you. And so you have to have respect for the limits of the organism and, just treat it with care. It will reward you. Again, like I've had so many great experiences. That's what I think I didn't say earlier, but just like it was amazing how when I learned that from Tony, that ability to like just shake people and shake their hands and look them in the eye was like it really worked, It just like by being respectful and kind to people, I started to notice on my shoots like art departments just like what you're making that like oh my god you didn't have to go like 10 miles past like the what I thought of out in the field gathering props like just incredible like output like grips coming up with like cool ideas for how to mount cameras, like just like people bringing their best. So I love that. And that's why I'll say that one line I've noticed very lately, like it started to really bother me when I've seen it on sets and it's something I really believe in is like to repose trust in the people that you are working with or fire them, like get rid of them. Like know how to discern that because like I had this thing happen a couple years ago that I really learned it in such a profound way because my grandmother has this phrase fire early
I remember you
But
saying
she's,
that to
yeah.
me once, and it stuck with me
Hmm.
because I've definitely been in situations where I should have done that and I didn't.
Yeah, you can tell it's in your gut. Like it happened to me on this one shoot. It was this like AC, and I knew I met her before the shoot. The way she was talking about cameras, I knew she did not know what she was talking about. And I just was like, well, so and so likes her, and yeah, whatever, it'll be fine. And then, but it didn't work out. But luckily, I had a respectful conversation with her at the end of the day, paid her her rate that she was already going to make, and then brought somebody else on, and didn't have to like spend the rest of the 4 days like in a protracted battle with somebody who was in over their head and just like wasn't right for the job. It just like it's no drama, there's no insults, there's no offense. Like, can you do the job or not? Like, and if you think that someone can do the job, then let them do it. Like, because that's the other thing is I worked on this documentary last year. I was like field producing it, and the producers were in New York or LA or somewhere, and the director and the DP were on the ground, and we were shooting these interviews, and the the producers were like live streaming it, and the level of I've never even like the level of micromanaging was insane. I think someone heard me say something over the walkie actually, because I was like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe like um just like the like move this thing to the left, move this thing to the back to the right, like the bass in the background, tiniest little like deals about light or whatever. And sometimes in some cases the producers actually like were right, like sometimes things needed to be moved, but I know the director and the DP and the like art person would have figured it out. Like they were watching the frame, there's a process here, and like I could tell that the way that the producers were doing it was we were on like speakerphone, and they were making everyone frantic, like every single interview, like right before it was time to go, the subject would be very flustered. You could tell like they could tell something was up, but they couldn't help. And so, and the crew's too indie to like really have like holding or a place to like make them comfortable. We're in these people's homes. Like it was such a bad way to do it. And I just was like, if you don't trust your director and your DP to notice weird shadows, or like if the colors of the pillowcases aren't right, like on the day of production, then you have not done your job as a producer. Like, you need to convey that information, and you need to repose trust in the people you've hired to do the job. Because why are you paying people hundreds of dollars a day just so you can sit on Zoom and do their job like why are you here? You should be here if you're going to be moving vases around and like there's a way. Like I could tell that like doing the complete opposite. If like on the very first day, letting some like you kind of have to like let things even slide. You don't go forever. Obviously, you need to get your shot, but like let them shoot it once and be like, did you see that van in the background? Then, oh my God, director DP, so embarrassed. Like, I can't believe that I did that. I'm gonna be like on it that much more, and like being like when people feel that there's a trust reposed in them, they bring their best work often, or they don't. And if they don't, fire them. Goodbye, thank you, good luck, see you later, no offense, you're not right for me, like. But if people, yeah, like anyway, so I just think that that's so important is like I hate to see that with people like hiring people and paying them to do a job and then micromanaging and not trusting them to do it. Like hire them and pay them, or do it yourself. Stop being lazy actually, and just because some people do that. There are directors who DP, produced, write, go out there and do your own sound if you really feel like you are better than everybody else. But if you're going to hire people, pick people who you trust and then let them do their job. Yeah.
Yeah. No, no, important, important.
Hmm.
Definitely. All right, we've been talking for
Oh,
almost
yeah.
an hour, so I definitely want to be mindful of your time. But I wanted to see kind of, manifesting or throwing it out there or whatever. Like, is there something that you'd like to direct or that, or something surprising that you think
Mm.
people wouldn't expect from you as a director?
Ooh, well, I don't know what anybody expects anymore. I hope that I've thrown everybody off sufficiently. But no, I mean, I feel like I have a couple things that I'd like to make. I have this, short that I was telling you about, this sort of long short that, mm, And it's one of those that, you have any of these, it's like, it's been on my mind for such a long time. I loved the idea when I first have it. I still think it's a good idea, but it's been on the back burner for so long and I haven't even written it that it's starting to feel stale without even having written it. Has that ever happened to you before? I'm just like, maybe I should come up with something new. But
Yeah.
I think it's still good. Anyway, there's that. And then there's a series that I really want to do about I've been thinking about this one for a hot minute and I'm just dying to write it. And I think that you will enjoy it. It's about my ballet years as a rising ballerina teenage star in Houston, Texas, in suburban Houston, Texas, while my family is falling apart. And yeah, I want it to be like Lady Bird meets Boogie Nights. And it's like a young girl coming of age in a rise and fall kind of, Americana tale.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I started going back to ballet a couple of years ago, and then I started writing a script with like the main character who's a modern day, ballet, kind of again
Mm,
like a high school type thing. Um and I'm trying to figure out kind of where to go from there. And then the show Etoile came on the scene and then was
mm,
canceled. I don't know if you've watched it at all, but like
mm,
it was like beautiful and wonderful. And then
mm,
I was talking about it in class this summer, and then another student was like, "Oh, well, there's this other show called Flesh and Bone, which I think only had one season, which was also like, and
mm,
that seems to be more of like a gritty, dark ballet
mm.
show."
Yeah,
And
I remember
it just
somebody
seems to
talking.
be kind of like a bit in the zeitgeist right now. It's like what is
Yeah.
ballet, and like
Mm,
I don't know. I'm curious. It's interesting to see other
yeah.
people kind of revisiting these things. And there are some
Yeah.
dancers that I follow who like are talking about, what is ballet in the modern world, and what's the
Mm,
value of it. So I don't know.
good question. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Let's bring it in. We need to like bring all the arts in together, bringing in performance art and dance. I really want to do some like in both films that I'm talking about, or like the series and the long short slash series. They have like significant dance numbers. I definitely want to be doing more dance in film and hopefully getting people to dance outside of film. But like it'd be really fun. My vision for the series, the ballet series, is that I would play my dance teacher. And then I want to like do like in The Souvenir. Have you seen The Souvenir?
No,
The
no,
Joanna Hogg movie. Oh,
no.
you have to see. Oh my God. Any young woman who went to film school has got to see it.
Okay.
Joanna, it's The Souvenir one, part one and part two. They're both phenomenal. I actually love part two even almost a little bit more because, part one is about her relationship with an older man while she's in film school.
Okay.
And it's the true story, like that the director told about, wrote and directed, and then is about her played by Tilda Swinton's daughter, and then Tilda Swinton plays her mother in the movie. Crazy. And then in the movie, the character of the director of the actual movie writes the story of her relationship with the older man and shoots it as her film school project, and that's part two. So it's like this very like mirror of a
Yeah,
mirror of a
yeah,
mirror,
yeah,
situation. And it's like I don't want to ruin it for you, but the very last shot is just so phenomenal. Because you'll forget it. It's
yeah.
like she's directing the characters on the soundstage in her like British film school in the 1960s. She's like the only girl, it's like a very good, you'll resonate with a lot of it. And she and no one believes in her. They're like, why are you making this movie? And the whole time she's like, I don't know. And you realize like the director's asking that question too about herself. And the very end, like the character wraps her movie and she's acting and the character she's playing herself, and then she calls cut, and then it pulls out from behind her camera through her sound stage, and then you see Joanna Hogg, the director of the movie itself, sitting behind her camera,
Mm.
watching through her, monitor, and then it pulls back and you see the real soundstage that the, movie's being filmed in. So I just love that, like again, like the kind of marriage of the artifice and the performance together. So I just think anyway, in my ballet movie, I want to have like, my vision is that I want my real dance teacher and like dancers from that company to dance in the movie at some point too,
That's fun. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, I have a pet peeve with ballet ballet movies where they have actors who are not dancers and like I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
not even
Yeah.
close. But but that was I
Yeah.
think what was shocking to me with Etoile is they're using the face mapping technology,
Oh,
and but it's so seamless now. I honestly thought those actors were dancing and I kept looking them up being like, who are these people?
whoa.
And then I was like, okay, I didn't
Cool.
know it's their body double. But
Oh, cool.
the transition between like there aren't any of the shots with the real actors where I mean as a dancer like the way they're holding themselves and then when it
Yeah.
cuts to the real dancer you're like, oh God, it's such a
hmm
terrible
hmm
transition. Um but this was so
Yeah.
seamless. I totally enjoyed it. But they canceled it until the
Wow.
second
I gotta watch
season,
it
even though it was already
at
approved.
12.
So yeah, it's on Amazon.
So
But
rude. I gotta
yeah,
watch
and
it.
it's the same. It's the Palladino team. So they did Gilmore
Oh,
Girls
nice.
and Miss
Yeah.
Maisel and all
Miss
that stuff.
Maisel.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
but yeah.
Great.
Well, any final thoughts or things you want to leave to
Mm,
whoever?
Final thought. I was just thinking about how funny and interesting children in the performing arts are in general. Like, it's just the why. But then how important it is too to have that outlet. Not everybody gets to be a child in the performing arts like we were,
Mhm.
for sure. And not everybody will. And we have to keep that going. We have to keep performing and dancing and singing together and take classes at HCC. And if they don't have classes anymore, take them somewhere else or just go and sing and dance and make movies and watch movies together. Because yeah, we gotta stay connected. We just have to keep making stuff, figure out a way. And, the profit and the fame will all come, whatever. If they're meant to come, they'll come. But we got to keep creating. It's and anything. Like it doesn't even matter if it seems stupid or foolish or comedic. Like that is actually so good right now. Um, that's it's my call to action to the community to create, just keep creating. It like affirms our existence and you know we keep trying to tell these stories. There's something about ballet too that I was thinking about, but oh, I don't know. Yeah, like we were saying about what is ballet's place in the modern world, I was like, I follow all these ballerinas on Instagram. Do you ever like,
I
principal
follow some of them.
dancers?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and like they'll show them at bar, and it just brings me back. And they're just so amazing, so talented and technical. And I'm always looking at like me and like Jenny Waldo, like four other ex ballerinas, like must be the only people looking at this, who give a shit. Why does everyone else care? But whatever. There's enough of us, first of all, that are interested in that content that are watching it. And I forgot. Just like every time I watch it, I think, no, like this is remarkable as like artificial as it comes. Why are these specific, ways that you have to hold your hands and do this thing? It doesn't matter. But watching someone execute that so flawlessly is just stunning. It's breathtaking. It's unbelievable. And I love again, like it brings me back to the ballet studio. This is what I really want to like show is what I love so much about dance class. I don't know if yours were like this, but like when you're not dancing on the floor, you're up against the walls or sitting under the bar, or like hanging out, and you're cheering on the people who are dancing, who are on the floor, or like if you're in rehearsal, like it just, I saw it in Navarro cheer doc too, like the way they
Mm-hmm.
like have mat talk,
Mm-hmm.
you're cheering people on from the sidelines. I love that about being a dancer, and
I think
that
that's
is,
more
yeah,
that I didn't quite, I mean, I certainly experience it now in classes, but that, to me, I didn't experience that in my ballet classes. It was
Mm,
much more austere in a way.
mm,
I mean, certainly you would clap at the end or whatever, but it was very that kind of uptight
mm,
ballerina clap, kind of thing.
mm, mm,
And a lot of judgment. But
mm.
to
Yeah.
to me, I think there's this the that austerity and the strictness of ballet where it's like this is correct, that is not correct, and there's a very
Hmm.
fine line between that. You have to,
Hmm.
and it's like you either have it or you don't. And
Mm,
I didn't have it in terms of pursuing professional dreams, which was probably my
hmm.
first heartbreak, in terms of all of
Mm,
that. But it also taught me a
mm,
lot. And there's something very, I don't know, that I internalized, or
mm,
at least it like gave me a structure or something, and and that was really helpful in terms
mm.
of like having it somewhat
Yeah.
more volatile, chaotic, emotional, you know
Hmm.
life. And but then as an adult coming back to it, I've had to unlearn the perfection of it and perfectionism of it,
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
do just love it.
Hmm.
And so my goals now are to like prevent injury, like
Hmm.
make sure that I'm not like overextending or trying to force things that are just my body can't do
Hmm.
anymore.
Hmm.
um but I can still enjoy it. And my technique, having been professionally trained, it's like my technique
Hmm.
is still there.
Comes
It's
back.
just,
Yeah.
and so it's like
Yeah.
I've
Mm,
learned to love it, and that I don't, I'm certainly not where I was 20 years ago, and I,
hmm.
don't think I'll ever be back there, but it's okay to love it and to do
Hmm.
it, even though I'm never going to be excellent at it anyway,
Yeah.
so I
Well, it's
don't
just
know.
a different kind of excellence. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, I know what you mean, but it's like, yeah, defining, you're right. Like, especially being trained as a ballerina, you really come to define excellence as the whole point.
Yeah.
And, like I remember so many times that I would be in ballet, like 15, just like crying, like so upset and like standing at the bar, like trying to like be like, why won't my like hips go in that way? Like, why can't my rib cage not be so large? Like I thought my body was so wrong and bad. And I look back and I'm like, that's
Right.
so pathetic. Like I was really a 15-year-old child, and nothing wrong with me. Um, so, yeah, but like that's always going to be aligned back to what you were saying before of that like tension, that friction between like wanting to, that perfectionism and the desire to express, because that's what also dance is and was for me. And what I loved so much about ballet was that you could rehearse a piece so many times so that you would forget that you ever had to memorize it, and it would enter your body, and then you could really perform, and then you could really be free. And so to me, like there is a marriage of those two that's very real, that like a lot of hard work and technique and discipline will get you to a point of like true expression, actually. And the same is true of filmmaking, right? If you have like a well, scheduled and planned situation and shoot, then you actually have room to express and play with a performance and like do something other than like, oh my God, we have to get the shot right now. I don't give a shit. Like, whatever, shoot it. Um, so yeah, it's like,
Totally.
however, we're
Yeah.
shooting it. Um, so yeah, it's like those two things I think have to coexist and have their blend for everybody. But I'm here for rigor. I think it has its merits, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Awesome. Well, thank you very
Yeah.
much for doing this. It's always great
Thank
to
you.
chat. I feel like this has become my excuse to like hang out with
Talk
friends.
to people.
I No, I mean it's like so many of
It's
my
great.
film projects are like I want to hang out with friends. I'll do a film project so we can
Yeah. It's great.
just be
Yeah, I
together.
agree with that.